Mixed martial arts is a sport filled with wild, crazy characters. And amongst those wild, crazy characters, one man stands out for his particularly wild and crazy behavior. That man is Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Let me paint a picture for you. It's 2016, and Donald Cowboy Cerrone is on an absolute tear.
We'll take
that's it, it's over, it's over.
Head kick knockout.
The man is unstoppable, 8 wins in a row, 6 performance bonuses.
Oh! Huge shot by Cerrone! Donald Cerrone does it again!
And a fresh move up to the welterweight division. He's finishing guys left and right.
Cerrone now trying to lock up the arm and go for the submission victory. Perry trying to fight out of it.
That's it.
15 seconds, he taps.
The UFC fan base can't stop talking about him. Cowboy's the people's champ, the Wild West action hero of MMA. He's got a ranch, sponsors are pouring in, and fans love him not just because he wins, but because he fights. Anyone, anytime, anywhere. No excuses, no politics, no ducking. Just straight up take your head off violence. Cowboy was blue-collar grit personified. The guy who never said no to a challenge, never took the easy route, and always put on a show. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a walking action movie. Flying head kicks, slick submissions, toe-to-toe brawls. He made the Octagon his stage. But fast forward just 5 years and it was like watching a cowboy ride off into the sunset, wounded and tired. 6 straight losses, no wins in 3 years, a devastating 40-second beatdown by Conor McGregor. And eventually Dana White, the same guy who's let legends hang around far too long, says publicly, it might be time for Cowboy to hang it up. So, what happened? How does a man who was once one of the most beloved fighters in the UFC end up leaving his gloves in the Octagon, head down, heart heavy? Let's rewind. A cowboy is born. Donald Cerrone didn't grow up in a gym. He wasn't some prodigy who trained from the age of 5. No, Cowboy's story starts in the rough streets of Denver, Colorado. A kid with ADH, always getting into fights, never quite fitting in. His parents weren't around much, so he was raised by his grandfather. An old school, no-nonsense kind of guy. The kind of man who believed in solving problems with your fists, not your feelings. If young Donald got into trouble, he got a whooping. If he lost a fight, Grandpa would send him back out there to fight again. It wasn't a soft upbringing, but it shaped him. Pain didn't scare him. Losing didn't break him. He learned early that when you get knocked down, you don't cry. You get up and hit back harder. Before he ever stepped into an MMA cage, Cowboy was doing something just as wild. Bull riding. Yep, Cerrone literally trained his body to stay on top of a 2,000-pound beast trying to launch him into orbit. It sounds crazy, but it makes sense when you watch him fight. He was always chasing adrenaline, living life on the edge. Cowboy didn't start training seriously until his early 20s. One day he walked into a kickboxing gym in Colorado and something just clicked. Soon after, he was competing in kickboxing, racking up an undefeated record. But he wanted more. He wanted to make a living off fighting, so he added wrestling and jiu-jitsu to his game and transitioned into MMA. By 2006, he was all in, and people quickly realized he wasn't just another brawler. He had slick submissions, sharp striking, and a mindset that wouldn't quit. And Cowboy wasn't for show, he was a cowboy. He wore the hat, rode horses, and lived the life. When he hit the WEC in 2007, it was clear he belonged. That promotion was stacked. Urijah Faber, Benson Henderson, and Cerrone fit right in. His first 3 fights ended in submissions. His wars with Benson were legendary. That first fight, one of the best in WEC history. So when the UFC absorbed the WEC in 2010, there was no doubt Cowboy was heading to the big leagues. A legend is made. He debuted in the UFC in 2011 and never looked back. From the jump, Cowboy fought like a man possessed, taking on killers, never saying no, always chasing the finish. Whether it was a slick submission or a brutal head kick, Cerrone delivered chaos. And fans ate it up. But what really set him apart was his mentality. He didn't play the rankings game. He didn't dodge risky fights. He wanted the toughest guys. He'd fight on short notice, injured, whatever. He didn't care, he just wanted to fight. By 2013, Cowboy was one of the most active fighters in the UFC, his own mind. Cowboy talked openly about his fear before fights, the panic, the self-doubt. But once the cage door closed, it all disappeared. He fought through it, every time. When he finally got his title shot in 2015 against Rafael dos Anjos, he was at the peak of his powers. But MMA doesn't do fairy tales. RDA crushed him in 66 seconds. It wasn't just a loss, it was a reality check. But Cerrone didn't take time off, didn't regroup, didn't change his approach. He jumped back in the cage just 2 months later, at welterweight, and somehow he looked even better. The slow fade. But here's the thing. That lifestyle, fighting all the time, never turning down an opponent, eventually takes its toll. In 2017, he ran into Jorge Masvidal. At first, Cowboy looked good, but by the end of the first round, he was hurt. In round 2, Masvidal finished him, brutally. After that, things started to change. Cerrone kept fighting the same way. No head movement, no defense, just a gunslinger swinging till the end. But the chin, it was fading, the reflexes, slipping, and his losses started piling up. Robbie Lawler, Darren Till, Leon Edwards, all killers, all too much for the older Cowboy. Then came Conor McGregor, January 2020, the biggest fight of Cowboy's career. The spotlight, the payday, the pressure, and within 40 seconds it was over. Conor crushed him, shoulder strikes, a head kick, a blur of punches. It wasn't just a loss, it was a beatdown. And after that, it was all downhill. Riding off into the sunset. From 2020 to 2022, Cerrone fought 6 more times. He didn't win a single one. Each time the same heartbreaking story. He'd walk in with hope and leave with another loss. Dana White said he didn't want to see Cowboy take more damage. But Cowboy, he kept fighting. Until finally at UFC 276, he hung up the gloves. "I just don't love it anymore," he said. "It's hard to get up for this. I want to be a movie star." And just like that, he walked away. Fans gave him a standing ovation because they knew it was the end of an era. After the Octagon. But retirement wasn't the end of Cowboy. It was a new beginning. He dove into acting full-time, and not as a background extra. He landed real roles. Terror on the Prairie, The Commando, even the Roadhouse remake with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor. The guy who once rode bulls and threw head kicks now throws punches on the big screen. And the BMF Ranch? Still thriving, still home to young fighters, extreme sports, and Cowboy's wild lifestyle. Shooting guns, riding dirt bikes, living life on his terms. Legacy. Let's talk legacy. Cowboy never won a UFC title, but that doesn't matter. He holds records that may never be touched. Most knockdowns in UFC history, second most performance bonuses, 38 fights in the UFC, and over 1,800 significant strikes absorbed. Over 1,000 of those were to the head. He spent over 7 hours in the cage. 7 hours of war, 7 hours of punishment, 7 hours of heart. Was it worth it? To Cowboy, absolutely. But his career is a cautionary tale too. Fighting every few months sounds cool until your body says no more. Saying yes to every opponent builds a legacy, but it also shortens your prime. Cowboy lived by the sword, and he faded the only way he knew how. Guns blazing, and in the eyes of his fans, he'll always be a champion.